Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Hope you guys are too. I'm going to talk a bit about SecOps. It's kind of a mashup of what we have, this DevOps agile mentality with security. And so obviously I'm in the security group, so I'm representing not only my team, security intelligence, but also the whole team. So we'll talk a little bit about how we kind of came up with this term and what it means to us and how you guys might be able to benefit from it as well. So quick show of hands, like who's even remotely related to security in here? Okay, I was actually expecting more because you guys are also spread out and sort of like on your own. That's typical security conference kind of thing. But anyways, thanks for joining. So I'll just dive right into it. We're going to introduce first the team, and then we'll step through a recent incident that we had, and we'll hope to dissect that incident in a way that you guys can understand and see how we use Atlassian tools to, make our workflow better and kind of handle things a lot more smoothly. So our security team's located around the world. We've got 3 main locations, Sydney being mine, and we have a number of different functions. But our main goal is to actually build trust with every team. And so we actually define trust as our main product. And so we don't really have much of a product per se, but really this is us looking after our customer data and after our products itself. So we want to make sure that you guys will have confidence in us to use our software safely and securely, and also to provide your data to us and have us host your data with a nice, clear mind. And so the way we do that is actually we have 3 kind of driving goals. So be transparent, be consistent, and also to break down barriers. And so that's something that typical security teams, they kind of are the barriers, but we actually strive very much so to not be the barriers, so to kind of get out of the way of DevOps and agile and all this stuff and facilitate our colleagues to make really great software. And so we also want to be consistent. So, me talking to you today is going to be the same message as someone next year, later this year at Summit in the US, as well as the same message that you'll see if you go to our website and you look at our Trust Center, which we'll talk about more later. And we also want to be as transparent as possible. So we publish as much stats and data and policies and procedures that our team does on our public website, so you can just go to our Trust Center and find out more about it. And we also try to carry that transparency out to customers individually, as well as to all the teams internally that we work with at Atlassian. We try to just be as transparent as possible. And so really, we break down the team into 3 main groups. There's security engineering, and so there's a whole group of people that do code review and look into the security of our products and make sure that they uncover vulnerabilities and address them in a timely fashion. We want to be secure from the ground up, okay? There's security intelligence. That's my team, actually. And so we actually look for kind of bad things happening on the network. We respond to reports from customers and partners like you, as well as internal teams which we look after. And then there's this sort of supporting function, policies and trust. They maintain our sort of public image, this Trust at Atlassian, part of our public website. And they deal a lot with the other teams, so they're sort of our voice of the team to other parts of the business and also to our customers. So everyone kind of comes up to us and says, oh, what's the Atlassian Stack, or what is Atlassian using, especially in security? It's kind of a buzzword, but I break it down into 2 main things. It's really the things that we do and how we track like what we work on. And so we put a lot of that up in Jira. To some extent, we trade off things here and there with HipChat, and we also track a lot of our activities in Bitbucket and some of the other tools as well. So it's all sort of mashed together. And then the other brain, or the other half of the brain that we use, is exchanging ideas and communicating, and how we kind of hand off ideas between different teams and different people within the team. And so what we have there is primarily HipChat, right? So that's the sort of, you might hear ChatOps or something like that. So we really believe in that as well, and everyone at Atlassian lives in HipChat. And so we actually hand off all our tasks in HipChat. We get a lot of our notifications from different products like Jira, and even external services that we use inside HipChat, like PagerDuty, for instance. And then what we have is this really cool bridge. Like I just had to draw a sort of line in there for you, because in my mind, all the products are sort of syncing all these notifications and data together. So we can log into a Jira incident or a Jira issue and see some of our comments are actually injected through email. And also, if we update a Jira ticket, we also see that reflected in HipChat. And it's really smooth to just have all these kind of things floating around. We don't have to worry about what product am I in. We can kind of have access to everything. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we work and exactly what my team does in light of a real incident, okay? And so we'll dissect that first. We actually have a sort of predefined way that we respond to incidents. We break it down into 4 phases. This is a sort of industry best practice that we define it into these 4 categories. And so prepare is sort of, we don't just run off and like sort of just start looking at stuff and start resetting servers and resetting accounts and things like that. We have a process for it, and we spend a lot of time. That's actually the kind of boring part, but we put a lot of time and dedication and energy into that. There's detect and analyze. So that is something that my team focuses on a lot. That's actually, writing queries and looking for certain vulnerable services and things like that, and trying to understand exactly what's going on so that we can kind of measure what's our response going to be. And then once we have our idea of what the response is going to be, contain, eradicate, and recover. That's basically dealing with the situation, figuring out if you've got it under control. And then we do a wrap-up, a post-incident review, or PIR as we call it, to try to figure out, like, how can we deal with this better the next time, or even better yet, how can we just prevent it from happening altogether? And so we don't, like I said, we don't just like run off and do whatever we want. We actually have a policy for pretty much everything we do. And if we don't have a specific policy for something that we do, we have a sort of overarching policy. And so this is our incident management policy. It's pretty much like, if nothing more specific is defined, this is what we fall back to. And this is actually available on our public site, part of our sort of compliance efforts. And we want you guys to understand how exactly we respond to these things. And so I think a lot of the things I'll tell you guys today is not actually revolutionary. It's more just like how you organize your thoughts, how you organize your team, and how you kind of run through this stuff. And in this particular case, we have a specific response guide for how to deal with a very critical incident. And so the incident we're going to walk through is actually a very critical vulnerability that impacted some of our products. So let's go into that in a bit more detail. And just a reminder that, like, it's not super technical. Like, a lot of this stuff is actually just a collection of Confluence pages. And so we have our detection playbook and our response playbook. And it's really just a collection of pages and says, to some degree, some technical stuff, like what's a query that you run for this or that or the other thing. But mostly it's just who to contact in this case, what's the procedure to follow. And so detect and analyze. We've pretty much figured something out, and so this is the first thing we do, jump in. I'll give you a bit of a backstory to save you the drama. This is from a few months ago. You guys might be familiar with it. Anyone know the Apache Struts vulnerability that came out a couple months ago? Anybody get hit by it? In any case, it's a quite high vulnerability. It's a perfect 10 out of 10, as they say, meaning that you can actually get arbitrary code execution on a server without any authentication. And so that impacts not only server products that you guys use, but also some of our cloud products as well. And so this is our actual screenshot of our actual investigation ticket that we kind of started with, kicking around the idea, are we actually vulnerable, and trying to understand what's going on. And so primarily it's impacting Bamboo and Crowd and also HipChat server. And so what we do is before we dive in and try to understand what exactly is going on, we actually group our alerts and our investigations, our issue types into different, or our tickets into different issue types, I should say. And so everything kind of starts from an alert, sort of the baby, like most basic ticket. Something's happened, let's go chase it. Once you get a bit more solid idea, we have investigation, and so that could be a collection of alerts. But it's important to understand that we have different ways to kind of create a ticket. So we use Service Desk a lot. People from the public can use our public-facing Service Desk and report an incident to us. And then other people can go ahead and contact us internally and report something. And so once the investigation is confirmed as an incident, we have like a special incident issue type, and so we try to run from there. And so the incident issue type actually comes with a lot of sort of drama attached to it. So we don't just like blindly create an incident. We actually have analysts on my team that are actually vetting the investigation, making sure something's actually critical and whether or not to invest all these resources that comes along with being an incident. And so I like to visualize it on timeline, but I also like to visualize how things go from a triage point of view. And so what we have is someone on my team will pick up something in a blog or some sort of email report, and sometimes security engineering will do the same. Here we've kind of gone through the investigation. You can see my comments up there, going through some different logs to say, oh, we've actually spotted this in the wild. It's no longer an investigation. We've got to escalate this to an incident. So what we do to kick this off is we actually go through, we generate a hip chat room, send out email comms and status page updates just to make sure that everyone across the org and all the key people know exactly what's going on. And especially the hip chat room is major, and the Jira ticket is major because that's our sort of main gathering point. And so from there, we move on to contain and eradicate. And so what I call this is crossing the streams. You sort of have to figure out all this work we've got to do. You got to somehow break it up into different groups, right? Investigating the exploit, figuring out who's vulnerable, what's at stake here, building and deploying the fix, actually going to the product teams, getting that patch ready, right? And then forming and sending the comms, working with marketing and sometimes legal to make sure that customers' comms are rock solid and that there's no margin for error. And it can get a bit messy, so as you can see, in a bigger incident when there's lots of issues at stake, we actually go through and we make a Kanban board, and it helps us kind of deal with everything a lot more easily. So we trust a lot of the other teams. We try to find a sort of point of contact, a trusted advisor in each of the areas we're working at. This is security engineering, for instance. They've got their process to follow, check all the products, make sure they're vulnerable, coordinate the patches with engineering, and so on and so forth. And then there's my team. We work in our own tickets. We've got our investigation here, and you can see this is actually me going through some of our logs from our cloud environment to say, oh, actually, we did see this exploited in the wild. What's our plan after that? And we actually, as part of our vulnerability release process, chucked in pretty much a copy-paste from my investigation. If you guys go and look up this announcement on Confluence, you'll see this exact snippet. So then we've also got comms, and for the larger bits of work that we can't track inside Jira, we actually make a Confluence page, and we try to have a bit of an agreement on what's going to be said, and then it's actually a simple copy-paste into our public deployment, and then we just hit save, and the vulnerability announcement is ready for you guys to view, and then we coordinate that with the product teams to actually publish the code that you can do for patching. And so it's really interesting to look back at the timeline and see how this one issue, this one email that we got from the vendor actually exploded into many parallel streams and dozens of people and teams working together. And actually to see how it went from one day after the release to 72 hours, and we've coordinated all this work around the world. And so it's something that I'm really proud to kind of dissect and kind of brag about on behalf of my team. So once we actually go through those servers and we remediate it and we publish the code fixes for you guys to download, then we go into what's called review mode. And so we do PIR, and of course we track that in Jira again. And it's a collection of tasks, and we try to do that all within the first week or so when it's fresh in our mind after we've kind of de-escalated the incident. And then we go ahead and we assign those actions to different people to kind of wrap up and do in the next few weeks. And we have actually a deadline that we want to make sure that we finish those within the first week or two, because if it's not fresh in your mind, you'll have that momentum from after the incident. You actually consider it a failed incident review. And so it's something that's probably going to happen again because you haven't taken any action about it. And so this is one of the sort of steps that a lot of people skip over because they're too busy or something like that, but it's one of the critical steps that we need to focus on in Atlassian. We're always trying to do things better and faster. And you can see this is an actual live screenshot from about a couple weeks ago. It was so close to the incident that a lot of the tasks were still open. And you can see that some of them are kind of simple tasks. They might say, hey, decommission this server. It was vulnerable, but we don't really need it, so just kill it. Other stuff is more non-technical. It's just, hey, review our incident process because there was a couple guys on the team that weren't really clear on it. And so it's a mixture of those things. And this PIR thing is really good to kind of keep yourself in check. And so really, I'll just wrap it up there because I know it's a lot to absorb. And like I said, we carry out the actions after that. But I'll wrap it up there. This is all about helping you guys. And what I want to offer is that if there's anything you want to dive into more, I've got my laptop here. You can ask questions as well at the end. Or you can even go to our trust@Atlassian.com site. And that really is a publication of all of our FAQs, a lot of our compliance points, and also a place where you can contact us directly. And so if you think of something after you leave here today, please go there and check it out. You can come flag me, contact me any way you can. and then we'll dive as deep as you need to into as much as I can share with you guys about the incident. And so yeah, thanks for your time, and I know it was a bit crazy and rushed, but it's a lot of stuff to get through. So thanks again, and I'll open it to questions.